Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Friends on the Other Side of the Atlantic, a Disney Lorcana trading card game podcast based in the UK and looking at all the hype that's coming up for this impending game release. As usual, your co-hosts are myself, Kev, and I have my lovely co-host here.
It's lovely to see you all. I'm Alex.
Hey, Alex, how's it going?
It's going all right, thank you, Kev. I was just going to say we had lovely game of Lorcana over our webcams last week, which was a lot of fun. And hopefully, fingers crossed, there won't be any massive news dropped halfway through recording this time.
I know. Yes, I agree. Had a lot of fun playing some demo deck games with you via webcam. A great way to play if there's nothing locally happening in your area. Of course, we still have to wait for the official release for our in-person events. But yes, I'm sure nothing big will absolutely not drop whilst we're recording this week. We will get onto that subject briefly, and we'll go through that. We've got a few things to discuss today. We're looking to go about another hour again. Seems to be a good run time. And so first things first, how was your week, Matt?
Yeah, it was nice. It was really good playing a couple of games with you over the webcam. I realised that I should really stick to community building because I'm not winning any tournaments anytime soon. I believe it was a wash with both decks. I think you very comfortably handed me my butt there. But yeah, it was fun. It was definitely nice to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very impersonal way of playing the game over via. We used Discord. We played in the Lorcana UK Discord server, and I'm used to playing webcam from playing Digimon. The card game came out in lockdown, so the only way we could get games in was to play via webcam. So I'm very much used to it now. As far as the games went, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put yourself down too much, man. Like it's it's early days, and we were just playing with the demo decks, and I do feel like maybe there's a little bit of a power imbalance between those two deck lists. I know that we swapped them around, and I know that it was a bit of a washout for your end, but I think you made some good plays. You made some optimal decisions. You kept your eye on the board state, on how long it would be until I could win the game or you could win the game, and those factored into your decision making as they should. And I think it's early days, right? You're just starting out. You've never played a card game competitively before, right?
No, not outside of playing the board games.
Yeah.
But I think for me, one of the things that really highlighted though is that Lorcana is a game of skill, even with this limited card pool. It's not just, oh, you got lucky and drew the right cards, you get to win. Or your deck is just infinitely better than mine, you get to win. Like, we had 2 decks, and, there was definitely a definite skill level was added to that, and that's really exciting. That's something that I think a lot of people who have kind of brushed off Lorcana, oh, it's for simple, oh, it's for children, oh, there's no skill in this, would be quite incorrect. I think there's a lot of skill that goes into playing the game well, and that's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. There are a lot of decision points to make. On the surface, I can see why people may feel like there aren't that many and that the game is quite shallow. I think they have to bear in mind that the game is, we're just seeing the very first few cards from the very first set. There's a lot of design space within Lorcana that the R&D team can really play with. And yeah, I think, there is a skill element for sure. And obviously in our games, I feel like I had a bit of an advantage knowing that, the basics of the card game mentality and what to do and what not to do. But I think it's really important that new players can come in and ideally get a feel for what they should be doing straight away. And I feel like we played like 3 or 4 best 2 or 3, right? So we played like 3 rounds, I think. And you made better decisions as we played more games. So there's definitely a learning curve for very new players who are just picking up this card game because they like Disney, and they're like, oh yeah, that looks really cool. Look at that card art, isn't it beautiful? Yes. Oh, my favorite Disney characters cards. Yes, let's play this. Awesome. And hopefully the idea would be is that the experienced card players in the community will be able to pull those new players up. Give them the information that they need to make informed decisions during the gameplay and when it comes to deck construction, so that they get over those initial trading card game learning hurdles quickly and efficiently. And so you can discuss with them about optimization, or thinking about what your opponent can do in their turn that's going to mess with you, and then reacting to that, maybe playing a couple of turns ahead, which is a skill level all of itself, to really go, okay. And I think a big thing is just going to be keeping track of the board state is going to be it's always important in any card game, because you need to know what the lay of the land is. But if you can be like, oh, at the moment my opponent is 3 turns off of victory here, that's only going to improve for him turn after turn, and I am either ahead, on parity, or behind that number. What do I need to do? I'm going to have to do X, Y, and Z to either get ahead or and slow my opponent down in other ways. And that's going to come in deck construction and do you want to spend your second turn ramping, or do you need to play that 2 lore character for 2? Do you need to be on turn 5 or 6? Do you need to be dragon firing a threat, or making one of your own? It's all going to depend on that board state and what you can see coming next turn or the following turn. Those are really the decision points that are going to be key in winning or losing a game of Lorcana, because it is a race. Absolutely. At the end of the day, it is a race to 20 lore, and if you're not doing anything on your turn and your opponent is, I've seen some really good gameplay videos where you can be like, oh, I can play this song, and that's going to be my turn done. And then the opponent's gone, okay, that's really cool, I'm going to make 2 dudes, and then I'm going to advance my win condition. Right? If you're not playing a dude, you're not advancing your win condition. So what you are doing instead of needs to be impactful. It needs to be removing a threat, or doing something. And sometimes you're going to be tempted, oh, I could play 1 jump ahead here to gain an extra mana next turn. Well, that's absolutely fine, so long as whatever you're ramping to can outpace whatever your opponent's just done. So yeah, there's a lot of really intricate decision points. I love the gameplay. I think the flow of the game is really good, and I'm just excited. I'm really excited to play more of this. I've just printed out all of the available proxies, and I'm like, okay, what do I want to build?
Yeah, and I think as well, being on the losing end, it's not a game that sucks to lose. I have played many games, certainly in the board game space, where half an hour in to a 2-hour game, you've lost, and you just spend an hour and a half crunching through because you agreed to play this game and there's 3 other players and they're all still in it, but you're out, you're out, and it sucks. And I can very comfortably say that Lorcana it's fun to lose. Like, as soon as you can see you're on the back foot, it's quick and easy to concede, because you can see your opponent can hit 20. There's nothing you can do to stop them. Let's wrap up the game there and let's do a deep. And rather than spending 20-30 minutes dragging out a game, you instead can spend 5-10 minutes doing a debrief and kind of working through it together. What did you play wrong? What would have helped your deck here? What could you have done better? There's a load of scope there for quick game, quick debrief, quick change to your deck, do it again. Quick game, quick change to your deck, quick debrief, quick chat, and that's so encouraging from a community building side of things, because It is so, like, the couple of times I have tried to dip my toe into Magic, and I went to casual game night at our local gaming store in Manchester, and I only played like one or two games. You can't learn anything in one or two games, and your opponent certainly can't help you when they know they can only get one or two games in, and they just want to get through this game quick. And it's the community were super welcoming and really friendly. It's just fundamentally Magic just wasn't designed for fast games, and that starts to hurt it at this point. And it's something I'm really excited to see Lorcana move into as a quick to play, quick to learn, but will still take you a long time to master.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right in that there is a lot of obvious ways to immediately improve your gameplay and your deck building. After a few rounds, you can be like, I have I've got a top end heavy curve. That's not very good because it means my early game is weak. Um,
Hmm.
or like it would be a case of, oh, on turn 4 I did XYZ, but if I had done ABC, that would have impacted a little bit more. Maybe I could have caught up in the law race, or maybe even got ahead. I think the key thing is that it comes down to how much time can you put in. As a competitive player, I try to get like 20 hours a week of card games in just to get the reps in. The way I view it is like going to the gym. Obviously, I hate the gym, but if you're gonna, you get out what you put in, and so if you can get those reps in consistently, you're going to improve. Um, and also, when you get to the point when you make a mistake, you have to be like, oh yeah, that was a really bad move. I probably shouldn't have done that. I have learned from that, and then you don't do it again. And then you'll
Mm.
get to the point where we can't we can't control the outcome completely because this is a trading card game. There is an element of variance. We're shuffling a deck of cards into a random position. There are going to be games where you will draw bad hands and you will lose that way. But if you can, if you get to the point where you're losing, but you haven't made a bad decision, you've not misplayed. So you have played everything you could have perfectly and still lost. As far as I'm concerned, that's still a win because you've played your game perfectly. The outcome just wasn't under your control, but every other decision point you made was the right one. Was it the Picard quote of you can? Was it something like you can make every decision correctly and still lose? Um, and it's and that's true with card games. You can be like, but that's where you can learn quickly. And as you say, you can be like, oh, I think I've made a bad decision with deck building here. Let me just do a quick change. Let's throw down again. Right. Oh, this immediately feels better. You're making that every turn play. It's going to be very important to do something on turn 1, to do something on turn 2, to do something on turn 3, at every stage of the game. As long as you're actively doing something and you're not being passive, I think there's you can advance your win condition and get to and try and keep in the game. And as you say, even if you get blown out, you'd be like, well, at least that was quick. let me shuffle up and go again and see what I can learn. And I think that's going to be a key mentality for new players to just come in with that. Right, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm here to learn. Teach me what you got. And then players like myself can be like, right, here you go. Here's a lesson. And I'm looking forward to just seeing the different sort of players come into this game, and see how they're going to interact with each other and how we're going to really build our local player bases and local communities in a way where this game is going to succeed. It's going to be around past that 2-year mark. It's going to be around
Hmm.
past that 5-year mark. It's all going to come down to, do you have a healthy local player base? Are they buying from their local game shop? Are the game shop then supporting them by running events? And these are all things that we're going to really talk about shortly, in that you have experience with creating local player bases, correct?
Yes, yes, somewhat. Um, so yeah, I'll be more than happy to dive into that. Did we want to just have a quick shufty at the elephant in the room?
Ah, yeah, we should probably talk about that very, very briefly. So, what news dropped whilst we were recording last week?
So in the middle of our recording last week, so we didn't see it when it initially dropped, and thank goodness. Upper Deck have sued the designer of Lorcana, Ryan Miller, and Ravensburger, for some kind of employment contract breach. I haven't bothered getting into the weeds with it. Um, and my hot take on the whole thing is, yes, it's a thing that happened. I am English. I don't know a thing about American employment law. I don't have an opinion on this. I hope we still get a Lorcana at the end of it.
Yeah, I'm glad that we didn't see it drop during recording, because there's a lot there to unpack, right? There's a lot to discuss, and other places and other content creators and other channels have spoken on length about this subject. There's some really good interviews out there. Um, I think at the end of the day, we want this to be settled in a way where we still get Lorcana as it was intended, and no one has to go to jail, or we don't get a cancelled game and Upper Deck are happy and Ravensburger are happy. I think if that, I would assume there's going to be a settlement involved should Upper Deck be able to prove that Ryan Miller stole their intellectual property to take it to a competitor. That's good. Like, it's not about the game mechanics. It has nothing to do with the game mechanics, other than they are the ideas that Ryan gave to what was employed by Upper Deck to create for a upcoming card game that he has since allegedly taken to Ravensburger to create Lorcana, and that's going to be the real crux of this legal battle. But hopefully, touch wood, it all goes smoothly and we get this amazing game as it was intended. And that's really all I can say about it. I also don't know much about American law, and it's we're just eating some popcorn over here, right, and hoping it turns out for the best.
Yes, very much so.
Cool. Okay, well then, let's have a chat. So, promoting our
Hmm.
local player bases. What are the first steps to do that?
So let's just go over my credentials real quick. I help run the Ashton Modern Board Gamers group. We are on Meetup. We get together once a week. We have a fairly solid core of about 10 to 15 players. And we play a wide variety of board games. I've also got experience as an attendee. Back when I used to live in Oxford, of attending Oxford on Board, which is also a weekly board game group that was running years before I got there, and as far as I know, is still running now. So the very first thing you need to do if you're thinking of setting up a player base, so a player base can be anything. It can be something as specific as whatever. So to give a bit of context, Magic the Gathering, one of the oldest and biggest trading card games, has a organized play event called Friday Night Magic, which they as a company support, and they get local game stores to host every night on a Friday, where people can get together and play. You could go for some whatever the Lorcana equivalent of Friday Night Magic will be. You could go for something like that. You could go for something more general, like a board game meetup, or something in between, a CCG meetup. It's up to you, whatever brings you joy. The most important thing you need to do is find a friend to do it with. I have tried doing this on my own, and it is absolutely awful, because if you get there and no one else turns up, you have wasted a whole evening. But if you get there and the one other person that will be there with you gets there too, then at least you can spend the evening playing games. And that will get you through that initial hump of the first 3 to 6 months as you try and find people who want to come along.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than taking that time out of your schedule. You know, we don't get a whole lot of free time as it is, and if we're spending some of that free time to organise events and tournaments and local game nights, we want those to happen. So yeah, very good advice there on making sure you've got a buddy to help you out promote these events, and then you've got someone else who's definitely going to be there. It
Yeah, I
hurts. It
mean,
hurts in your soul when you're like, okay, I've just had a long tough day at work, but tonight is game night. We're going to go flop some cards, roll some dice, or whatever it may be, and you get there and you're the only one, and you're like, ah.
yeah, that's the bit that hurts. Like your friend doesn't need to help you promote. They don't need to do anything other than promise to be there as well. Ideally, someone you can travel down with. Um, Heck, if it's your partner, even better. Just someone you can lock in as being there every week with you. So hopefully, someone else who also wants to run a group or help co-host. So once you've done that and you've found yourself a space, I am going to preface this. We are an English podcast, so I'm going to be talking about the English cultural norms. If you have a local library, which you almost certainly do, go and find out if they allow community groups. They almost certainly do. They will usually be able to give you a space for free. Their hours might not be ideal, as was 5 o'clock till 8 o'clock, which meant some people struggled getting in after work. But when it's free, you're not risking anything. And that's really important when you don't know if the group's got any legs. Don't risk a penny on doing something that you have to pay for. Find yourself a nice free space. It can be possible to use pubs, and clubs will usually have function rooms, but try to find somewhere that's accessible. There are a lot of board gamers out there with disabilities, and disabilities are more than just wheelchairs. It can be something like a pub may be inaccessible to someone who has addiction issues and can't be around beer. It might be someone has issues with noise, and the pub might insist on having loud music all the time, which is very disruptive to board game groups where you want to be able to chat and discuss things with each other. But once you found yourself a nice space and you found someone to go with, run it for a couple of weeks just yourselves to make sure everything works, and then start thinking about how to advertise and promote.
Yeah, good advice. And of course, not only, hopefully, your city also has a friendly local game shop who will already be running other organised play events and other meetup days. I feel like most of them are going to be wanting to promote and push Lorcana as a product, and so hopefully those planned organised play league events and league nights will be able to be run in your friend local game shop. I think make sure you have a good relationship with your friend local game shop. I think that's very important. Make sure you pre-order from them, make sure you buy them, and support those independent game shops that have decent business practices.
Yeah, that can be something that can be quite difficult to pin down. The one near us is all so there's a shop in Ashton, but they don't open um, for game nights during the week, and their weekends are already fully booked with Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z or Yu-Gi-Oh. Basically, they're fully booked and have no interest in, it's not broken, they ain't gonna fix it.
Yeah, that's fair. I
So
mean, there is a
don't be pushy,
yeah, there
because
is.
that will just annoy them.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I mean, if there is literally no room in their schedule or their business hours, they don't operate in the evenings. It's going to be a little bit difficult. Maybe find some of those other options, but
Yeah.
9 times out
But
of
once one of
10,
those other options, one thing to consider is once those other options have got legs and you have a core group getting together, especially if you're doing active CCGs or board game, taking that to your friendly local game shop, might be able to get a bit more traction with them. If you can tell them, I am running a group, we have 15 people, we'd like to use your space upstairs.
Yeah.
That may have more legs on it than just me and my friend might be running a group. We need to see what's going on. They're far less likely to go for that. They have rent to pay. They have bills to worry about. They'll have staff to pay wages for while the place is open. So it is worth trying to branch out in your own little space to start with.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm already thinking ahead for my local game shop, Excelsior Games in Bristol. Their evening schedule is pretty packed as it is. You know, they have a dedicated Magic night. Of course they do. They have a dedicated Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh night, and then like Thursdays tend to be all of the other card games. Like at the moment we have Dragon Ball Super, Flesh and Blood, and Digimon all running on a Thursday evening, which is, it gets busy, and sometimes there's just no space in the upstairs of that store, and so I'm a little bit concerned as like, where are they going to stick Lorcana? Because if they try and put it on a Thursday night, there's going to be no room, unless Digimon completely dies a death, which I hope it doesn't. But we still get, 4 to 6 players if we're lucky every week. But yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, schedules and conflicts are the bane of the adult gamer life, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
So,
Any other thoughts around pushing your local, like promoting your local community, maybe away from the game table? So, like for example, I tend to use, I know it's not the best, but Facebook groups, messenger chats to just right guys, it's locals this Thursday, who's coming, who's not available, let us know what your numbers are in advance so that we can make sure we've got the game night happening. And you can use those chats or those pages on social media to just be like, let's talk about this thing, or this just happened, let's talk about this thing, and really engage in that local community, and of course the wider community as a whole. There are global Facebook groups, there are global Discords. There's a lot of places to talk about Lorcana, as there is any game, and people are very excited about it.
Yeah, it can be difficult because you want to work out what you want to achieve, and it can be very easy to get lost in the social media rat race of engagement, and everyone has to be talking and checking and liking and sharing. But that can be a very unstable foundation. It requires a magnitude more effort to keep a system like that running, and you don't necessarily benefit from it. That kind of system works really well for advertisers because they keep you refreshing the same page so they can show you another ad. What we've had a lot of success with Ashton on board is a poster, a printed out little A4 knocked together in Google Docs poster that just said what we are, when we meet, what kind of games we play, and a photo of like a pile of the games we play, so people know that we're talking about Settlers and Villagers and not Monopoly and Risk. And you put that up in your local library, put it up in your community. Almost certainly has a little notice board. Pop it up there. And in your local game store, they'll probably be more than happy to have it there as well. Just ask first before you put anything up. And that helps you get people to come along, because fundamentally the most important engagement your group can have is people attending. It doesn't matter if your Discord is super active. It doesn't matter if you've got 20,000 followers on your Facebook page or your Twitter account. If 3 people show up for game night, that's not great. You probably want more than 3. And that's the number you need to be chasing.
Agreed. Absolutely spot on. I couldn't... Yeah, absolutely. I think we do have a slight benefit with Lorcana, whereas if 3 people turn up for a game night, we can play some multiplayer. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, no, there's nothing worse than being that third wheel when you're like, okay, I get to play every other hour this evening. Okay. Yes, no, I think that's a really good idea. You gave me some flashbacks to when I was postering for the local wrestling events and the promotion that I used to wrestle for, and yeah, we would just, you just go into a shop, stick them up. Can we put this poster up in your window? I'm not saying you go to that extent for a gaming meetup night, but where would be logical places where Disney fans would hang out, just slap a poster up there. We're playing Lorcana. It's the brand new Disney trading card game. Come and have a go. Come and learn. We can demo the game to you. Come and have a go. And I think that's it. If you can really engage the non-gamer audience, then you can really branch out and hopefully gain some fresh blood. And that's the important thing here. You want to have, yes, you want dedicated players, but you need to grow that player base, and the only way to do that is to just try and bring new people in constantly. And it's not easy. It's really not easy. And
and it's important to acknowledge that you will probably not be able to be a foundational part of a social group and an excellent tournament player, at least not at the same time, or not easily, because your priority, if you're running the gaming space, is making people feel welcome. The best example I could think of is there's the Amber Mickey card that welcomes all the new Illumineers to the Illuminary. That's you. That is your priority at your event, is that you make sure people who are new or who haven't quite settled in yet feel welcome and are invited in, and offer to play games with them. Sit down, say, hey, I haven't seen you before. What's your name? I'm Alex. How are you? What brought you here? Feel free to ask them what brought them here. That can be really good to find out that, oh yeah, I saw your flyer in this shop, or oh, one of my friends told me this. That can be really helpful to know. But then you sit down and you play a game with them. And if you can try and learn their name, that's great. But I'm really bad with names, so I set myself a goal of learning 2 names every week. I can learn 2 names. I can learn 2 names a week, and that's all I have to do. But fundamentally, the most important thing you do is welcome people in to the group, to the game, and get them sit down and get them playing. If you spend the night and you run a game night for 3 hours and you only play 1 game in that whole time, that's great. It hopefully means you spent it introducing new players to the game and getting them sat down and enjoying themselves. And then they'll come again next week and the week after that. And that's how you build a core. That's how you build a base. And they'll go out and tell their friends, and then when they bring a friend in, you can be like, well, are you okay teaching them the game? And they'll be like, yep, great, you've got someone else who can teach the game now.
Yeah.
And if you get the ball rolling, and it can take a lot of pushing depending on your community and depending on your space, but once you get that ball rolling, it can be a bit of a snowball, and it might not keep growing, but it will definitely keep going. And that can be, once that's done, that's the hard bit done, and it will just trundle along on its own. You just have to give it the odd nudge now and then to keep it on the right trajectory. And from there, you are going to build a really strong player base, and you are going to make friends. And that's so important, is that to see these people not as just customers or users or things to engage with. You make friends. That's one of the most important things I think Lorcana tries to have in its ethos, is that we're here to be friends, not competitors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would also say that if you have like spare commons and uncommons, take them with you to those game nights and make sure that new players always leave with something. You're not going to need 12 copies of a certain common, are you? So just like, hey, take some cards home with you, have a little look through them, have a little play with them. If you want any support or tips with deck building, like, just give us a nudge. Happy to help. And just be welcoming and helpful and supportive of those new players, and try and keep the I think we're going to be okay, but because inherently the level of toxicity is going to be lower for Lorcana, I hope That's their design ethos, right? That's why they're not doing big organized play events for the first year. So if you do have a couple of toxic players or overly competitive players, maybe don't sit them down with new people on their first night. Just ease the new players in gently, or have a word with them and say, hey, look, but this isn't about winning this game. This is about teaching someone else the game. I know it can be difficult to switch out of the competitive mindset when you're there to play cards. It's something that I can struggle with quite a lot. But it comes with experience. Once you've helped teach the game to a few people, you realise what to do, and you kind of rein yourself in, and so I think that's really important. Make sure they have a good time, make sure they're engaged, and then send them home happy, right? And they'll come back. Same thing with wrestling shows. There you go. Send them home happy and they'll come back next time.
Maybe don't throw them into a table.
No, don't throw them through tables. Those tables have not been cleared for wrestling bumps.
However, I think it is important to accept that, some people are going to be here to play Lorcana to win. And, that's absolutely fine. And I think you are going to be one of those people, aren't you, Kev?
Yeah. I can't deny it. I really enjoy the achievement and the feeling of achievement I get from winning a card game. Not necessarily like crushing my opponent into the ground, but I really like the validation that comes with performing well, especially after I've put so much time in. You want to be seeing those results. If you're dedicating so much of your free time to your hobby, you want to see those really good results. And of course, you can't win every event you ever go to, but the goal is to be consistent. So if you can consistently do well, that's great. If you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I think I'm going to be okay this event. I can go 4-2. I can probably go 5-1. That's where you want to be. You want to be consistent and comfortable, knowing that you're going to have a good day or not. Apart from, and you can't take into account variance, it will mess you about. But yes, I am a competitive player at heart. I'm looking forward to consistently making the right decisions in game and hopefully getting those consistent results out of it. And that's going to be my mentality going in. I want to have a good time. I want to make sure my opponent enjoys the game, but I want to win.
So why don't you tell the listeners what your credentials are for going competitive?
So I've been playing card games competitively since I was 13, 14. I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively when I was about 13 or 14, and so that was kind of like my first foray into competitive gaming. I grew up in the 90s, so the Pokemon boom and the trading card game boom as a result of the Pokemon card game happened, but I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't really know how to play that game or what to do or whatever. But when Yu-Gi-Oh! Came along, I was fortunate enough that the local player base in Southampton was massive. Like, we were getting 300 people every month to our monthly event. So there was immediately this is serious business. And it took me a long time to work out and learn and I learned from others as well, but also, the very basics of competitive card games and the do's and do nots of playing a card game competitively. But I still wasn't very good. I didn't win many events. I certainly don't remember any big Yu-Gi-Oh! Level events. I don't have any good results from that. But when I eventually drifted away from Yu-Gi-Oh! And I found a really good player base for other card games, and they were full of great people who took me under their wing and kind of like showed me not only how to be a good card player but also a good human being. That was a really important part of my development as a human being. I found adults that I could trust, who were happy to pass on their experience through means of wiping the floor with me. But this was with card games like Universal Fighting System. This was with Raw Deal. I missed that game quite a lot. However briefly I played it. Even playing Texas Hold'em with these people, you know, I learned how to read people, and I took that into competitive card gaming, and being able to read someone who sat across from me using poker skills to fight in a trading card game has won me events, no doubt about it. And I've gained a lot of experience, and it took me through a lot of various card games. I dipped into Vanguard very briefly. I spent many a year playing Game of Thrones first edition LCG from Fantasy Flight Games, and when they transitioned to the second edition of that game, I played that too. I picked up Legend of the Five Rings. I played the AEG version of that game very briefly, and I played the FFG version of that game for a while. In fact, I tried to juggle both Legend of the Five Rings and a Game of Thrones simultaneously, but that's hard. To be good at both is God. I was quite happy being mediocre at both. with my Martell cards and my Phoenix Clan cards. But I really started to get competitive with card games when I picked up the World of Warcraft card game. That's the first card game that I played, that I travelled for internationally, and I still wasn't very good at that because I refused to play anything but Druid, and Druids were never very good. They had a very, very brief moment in the sun, but most of the time they just didn't have the same power as other cards and other classes. But I really enjoyed that game. I travelled with the community all over Europe playing it, you know, before going into a Game of Thrones, and travelling all over. I went to Worlds for Game of Thrones and Legend of the Five Rings. That was very, very cool.
What's Worlds?
So Worlds was the end of year. It was basically the season finale of the organised play of those games, where at the end of the year, you know, you went to Worlds. It wasn't necessarily a qualification event. You could just turn up, but it was just in Minnesota. So I got on a plane and I flew to Minnesota, and I played some Game of Thrones and some Legend of the Five Rings, and I did okay. But so it's taken me a long time. I was very mediocre for a long time, and I picked up Digimon when it after Transformers card game died. I got quite good at Transformers, but that got eaten by WotC when they decided to cannibalize that to put the money back into Magic, which was a shame. That was a very good card game, and Digimon came out shortly after that. I jumped into Digimon, and I don't know what it was. Maybe it was I really just gelled with the mechanics, but I suddenly got very good at card games through playing Digimon, and recently my results have been showing that. I've been consistently top 4ing big events, national level events, international level events, online events. I got top 16 at the European Championships, essentially, which was a big event over in Germany. We had almost 500 people. That was probably my biggest result there in terms of just the level of players there. I won a regional championship in person for Digimon last year, and then 2 weeks later I won another event and took home a PS5. So
Oh, wow.
It all paid off. It started to really pay off, and I've got to the stage where I am consistently getting those good results. Not every event. I scrubbed out last weekend at an online event. I went like 2-2 drop and went and did some overtime at work instead.
2-2. What does 2-2 drop mean?
So I won 2 games, lost 2 games. So I went 2 wins, 2 losses, and then I dropped out. I clicked drop from tournament, and I went to work instead. You know, it's so like, if there's not a top cut, so if there's not like 6 rounds of Swiss and a cut to the top 8, If it's just 6 rounds of Swiss or 7 rounds of Swiss, you know that if you've dropped 2 games, you're not going to get the big prizes. And so you've played your 2 rounds, you're going to get your participation prizes, but you're not going to do much better than that unless you win the next 5 games. So like if you've got other things to do with your day, go and do those. You know, if you're at an in-person event, maybe drop out, there might be some side events, go and do that. You know, so knowing when you're like, okay, it's been a bad day, I'll cut my losses and go do something else.
Okay.
Yeah, and so yeah, that's my credentials. I've finally got good at a card game. I'm risking it all, by the way, by jumping into Lorcana because I might be really bad at it.
Well, if you're bad at it, what does that say about me? So you've kind of given this image of jet setting. I'm honestly curious where. So obviously we don't know what Lorcana is going to bring, but we can infer that Lorcana will crib off the same notes as everybody else.
Yeah.
So where do these tournaments take place?
Well, we have, in addition to maybe your local weeknight events, there could be regular monthly events that happen in your local game store on a Saturday or a Sunday of a month, every now and then, maybe once a month, maybe once every 2 months, wherever the schedule allows, really, where you can take all of the practice you've put in and hopefully you'll have a slightly bigger playing field to really, you know, put those practice rounds to the test. Other than that, if we go with basic standard sort of organized play, bear in mind this is going to be a year down the line for Lorcana, but you could be looking at store championship events where your store will run like a store championship, and that may draw player bases from the surrounding area. For example, I've travelled to, say, from Bristol to, say, Reading, Southampton, Cardiff, Newport, you know, and other surrounding areas to play in store championship level events, where that's where you can put your skills to the test against a completely different player base that you're not used to playing against, and hopefully get some good results out of it. The next level up from that would be, say, regional championships. Maybe they'll do it by, I don't know, they might want to do it by county, or they might just have a case of, we're not going to do regionals, we're just going to do a national event, and that will happen once a year, maybe at something like the Games Expo, or they might have a big store that has a lot of playing space available, like maybe Living Realms, who have a very big venue that they can use for weekend long events, where you can basically a national championship, right, where every player in the UK or your local area will turn up to try and battle it out to become national champion. So that's obviously the next stage up. Then you've got maybe European championships, continental championships, sorry, where, you know, there might be a venue in Europe, and you all and everyone travels to that venue to battle it out to see who becomes the European champion, and then whoever wins that may qualify for Worlds. And so, you know, I don't know where Lorcana would run Worlds, probably somewhere in America, maybe at Disney World, who knows. But then you're battling out to become world champion, and these are all things that the game could definitely support. They're just choosing not to for the first year. But yeah, just think about it's just basically an ever increasing road, you know. But that mountaintop gets higher and higher, and of course the level. And if you're playing with good players, you know, who can help pull you up, you're going to get better. You get better by losing. You run into those good players and they wipe the floor with you, and then you go, oh, what happened there? What can I do to change that? And hopefully they can help pull you up and give you that knowledge and experience to really up your own game. And then before you know it, you're travelling to a national championship. You've got a curry house booked the night before. You've got 30 players turn up and go, right, let's have some good curry and good times before we flop some cards tomorrow. And that's the best thing about it, honestly. The best thing about being a competitive player for me is travelling all around the UK /Europe /the world, and meeting new people. You know, the connections you make in these communities are really important. I've got people that I still talk to that I played, you know, in the World of Warcraft card game 15 years ago on Facebook, that I still every now and then I just see, oh, how are things going, you know. They're in Germany, they're in Spain. You know, I've got a friend in Japan who put me up for 3 weeks one time because he said he would when I met him at Worlds. You know, it's stuff like that, and the connections you make and the bonds that you make. That's the best part about it. And also, a pre-tournament curry, best thing in the world, right?
So, with all that said, how expensive is it to go pro?
Well, I don't think you can really go pro unless, for some reason, someone decides to sponsor you and pay for your flights and travel expenses and hotel expenses. I think if you can justify spending X amount on going to big events, you should do it. If not for anything but the experience of doing so, it's just really cool. But yeah, it does mount up. Say you have to, you know, get a hotel, and say there's an event at Games Expo next year. There probably will be. You have to find a hotel for at least one night, maybe two, maybe three if you do the whole weekend. You have to pay for your attendance. You have to pay for the event. It adds up. You have to pay for your food and drink. You know, it all adds up. I've spent, you know, £400 flying out to Europe and grabbing a hotel and food and drink and tournament entry, and so like, and you're not necessarily likely to make that back. I've been very fortunate this year in where I've done very well, but you have to accept that that is a loss that you're willing to pay to have a very good time, and that's the key thing. Win or lose, if you go to a big event like that, you're going to have a fun time. It's amazing. You know, new experiences, new people, new locations, great food.
So they're basically, going to tournaments becomes kind of like what other people might spend their money on a holiday, going to Ibiza or the Bahamas or something. You spend it to go to these tournaments instead.
Yeah, I know. I've travelled. Yeah, that's it. And sometimes, if you're lucky, those can become your holidays, right? I had when I went to Worlds in Minnesota, I was fortunate enough that I had the money to book the following week traveling to Portland, Oregon to go see friends who I'd never met in person before. You know, I made it a holiday. But there's sometimes where it goes very wrong. There was a Dark Moon Fair event for Warcraft card game back in the day in Venice. Now, it was on the outskirts of Venice. But we decided one day that the 6 or 8 of us, you know, mid-20s dudes, were like, yeah, let's go into Venice. I'm sure it'll be great. Not really the ideal location for a bunch of mid-20s dudes on their own in Venice. Yeah, we weren't really the ideal audience, you know. But it was cool. It was an interesting experience, you know, and stuff like that. You make memories, right? You go, oh, wow, that was a thing that I did. That happened, and yeah, and I've got, you know, memories of playing in Madrid, playing a card game, getting absolutely blown out of a game on like turn 4, twice, by my opponent. But he was so nice about it that we just got on, and you know, we're still acquaintances to this day. Yeah, that's honestly, winning is great and it's validating and it's a nice feeling, you know, doing well at an event. But I could scrub out completely, and as long as I've had a fun time and I've done something cool with the community, and you know, people are great and a pleasure to be around, like, that's enough for me.
That sounds very, very cool. I have more questions, but I'm aware we're getting a little strapped for time, so we will save them for next week or something, or another time we want to chat about what it means to go pro in Lorcana.
Yeah, I think a competitive corner could be like a staple of our agenda going forward. There's lots of things to talk about, especially things that brand new card game players may not be aware of. There are going to be players out there who are like, what does aggro mean? What is tempo? What is control? Those are things that we can happily talk about. I could definitely talk about the sort of vernacular and the A to Z's of competitive play and terminology that you just might not know about. So if you want to hear maybe something along those lines, give us some feedback, let us know. But yeah, we are running on for time, so I think we should get to the last few things on our agenda this evening. We had some spoilers this week. We had some actual spoilers.
Been a while.
It has been a while. And we had 3 spoilers this week. We had 2 cards that we have got fully spoiled, and we had a brand new card revealed. Now, judging cards in a vacuum is always interesting, but we can give our immediate takes on these cards, right?
I mean, you certainly can. I'm just going to say they look pretty.
Okay, so the first card that we have here is Timon, Grub Rustler. He is a 1-cost amber ally with the Storyborn and Ally trait, 1 strength and 2 willpower, and he quests for 1 lore. His effect is Tastes Like Chicken. When you play this character, you may remove up to 1 damage from chosen character. I think that's a fairly solid 1-drop character there. Very likely that he might get power crept by set 2 or 3, but a 1/2 for 1 that lore quests for 1 and potentially removes a damage. Okay.
Yeah, it's so where would you slot this in? Like, is there a particular moment you can see this coming into play? I'm trying to think how many times I ended up with a card with just 1 damage on it, or is it worth picking up, reducing a 2 to a 1?
Yeah, I feel like most 2-drops and above obviously can probably banish this character in a challenge. I think if you can get him to stick on the board, he's going to be a character that maybe you're not going to want to quest with or challenge with, but he could potentially give you some extra additional value out of characters in the mid game with his effect. We don't know how relevant damage removal is going to be in Lorcana. There are obviously some cards that do it better, but as a standard 1-drop, I mean, it's fine. You play him on turn 1, maybe he sticks around. But the fact that the big thing is that he instantly, his effect is instant, right? When you play this character, so maybe turn 3 or 4, you challenge with some characters, you take a damage back, and then you can play Timon, heal that character so that it's out of range of being banished by your opponent on their turn. Any card that instantly alters or affects the game state is going to be impactful straight away. So, if they do immediately answer him, maybe he gets blown up with the fire the cannons, but he's come in, he's done his effect, job's a good one. They've spent a 1-cost card to kill your 1-cost character, to banish your 1-cost character. I think that's fine. You're okay with that?
So, should we move on to the next?
Yeah, so we have the fully spoiled Iago, Loudmouth Parrot. He is a 3-costed, 1 strength, 4 willpower emerald ally with the Storyborn trait. He quests for 1 lore, and his effect is, you got a problem? Exert Iago. Chosen character gains reckless during their next turn. They cannot quest and must challenge if able. Any card that has the ability to impact your opponent's decision making is going to be good. Being able to say, no, you're not going to be able to do that during your turn, is hugely impactful, especially if you're aware of how many turns away they are from victory. And if you can set up a board state where you have maybe one other exerted character who's quite beefy, is going to survive that challenge and wipe out the challenging character, then you've just, that's a massive tempo gain, right? You've really impacted the board state to a point where your opponent is now behind, and you've still got not only the character that was challenged, but also Iago in play. Yeah, I like him. He's got 4 willpower. That's a good number. He's 3 costed. He can sing quite a few songs. You know, if you don't want to take advantage of his effect, you can exhaust him to sing a song. Yeah, I quite like the play style that Emerald has. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of those cards because they look like they're going to be quite a fun control sort of colour there. I'm really excited to see more of them.
Yeah, and again, it's nice to see more of have a proper good look at the artwork now with Emerald. You're getting a lot of these really soft swooshes going on, and the characters are coming out really. It's such a good contrast with the kind of greenish blue background. Iago really pops out of that. This is one of those ones where I'm actually kind of excited to see what they foil. I think this is going to be a really interesting one to see what they kind of like highlight with the foiling.
Yeah, I'm quite excited. Yeah, just to see what they do there, and also if they decide to have extended arts of cards, that's going to be great. I want to see more of this art. Yes, shrink that text box down. You know, show me more of the art, please. I love extended art cards. Okay.
Now we move on to the new one, Genie on the Job.
Yeah. So he is a 6-cost uninkable Storyborn ally. He is Emerald. He has 3 strength and 4 willpower, and quests for 2 lore. He has evasive. Only characters with evasive can challenge this character. It's a good keyword. We know that much already. And his effect is disappear. When you play this character, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. Again, an effect that instantly impacts the board state, instantly gains you tempo, and puts your opponent behind again. The only downside is he's not inkable. He doesn't have a whole lot of strength for his cost, but the effect more than makes up for that. You know, if you're going second and they've just gone 6 for their 6-drop, and you go, cool, 6 for my 6-drop, immediately nullify your previous turn. You did nothing.
Yeah, because one thing you can do with these is there's no restriction on targeting characters that are still drying.
Mm-hmm. So, and imagine being in that position where you're like, okay, you know, maybe I'm a little bit behind here, but I've got a good 6-drop, brilliant. There we go, boom, and they go, cool, nice character you've got there. Would be a shame if something were to happen to it. This is probably like the best form of removal on an ally we've seen so far, in that it immediately answers something when it enters play, not when it's banished, not when it's challenged. When it enters play, it immediately answers something on the board and bounces it back to your opponent's hand. This card is very good.
Very excited to see what comes of that.
Yeah, I mean, they're hot takes. Again, as I said, we are judging cards in a vacuum, but I think anyone can agree that any card that returns a character to its owner's hand and then sticks around to do more stuff in the following turns is quite good.
Hmm. And it can also target your own as well, so maybe it pairs nicely with Timon we just saw, heal, bounce, heal.
Yep, returning your damaged 4 or 5 drop to your hand so you can play it again next turn. Absolutely nothing bad about that. Because then you're negating all of the work that your opponent's done to answer that character. If they've gone,
Hmm.
okay, I have to challenge this turn to put some damage on that character. If they don't banish that character and you go, okay, cool, well, I can quest with that character, then I can play Genie to return that character to my hand and play it again next turn. Again, you've got an advantage there. So
Absolutely.
I'm excited about Genie. It's a good card.
Very cool. So did we want to just touch briefly on some local news and then we'll let folks get on with their days?
Yeah. So the last thing we're going to talk about are launch events. Hopefully, your local game store or equivalent are going to be announcing theirs soon. Obviously, we know that the official release date is Friday, the 18th of August.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, that we don't have any delays to impact that, and hopefully, we get to open those boosters on Friday. Look on that Friday. Looking forward to it. However, yes, do check in with your local game shop. See if they plan to run a launch event. We had one announced this week by Fanboy3 up in Manchester. They will be running a midnight launch party for Lorcana on Thursday, the 17th of August, and it's going to be from 9:30 to 4 o'clock in the morning. So, if
I am going to be very tired.
I'm going to be asleep in Bristol, I'm very sad to miss this, but
Yeah, I am
this
very
is
excited to be there.
this is a very, very cool event. Not only are you going to be cracking open starter decks and potentially booster boxes at midnight, um, from 9:30 they will be throwing open the play area for Disney board games, Disney snacks, and testing Disney knowledge with a Disney quiz. I love a Disney quiz. Ah, and there are prizes too. What a really cool idea. Hats off to Fanboy
Yeah.
3 for really going, okay, let's go and do this. I think this is a great idea. And yeah, I'm really sad to miss it. I'd love to go, but it's a bit far. And I'm 36, man. Like, I am old. I don't function at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, I am not planning to stay that late, so this is my local game store. I am very excited to be going. I actually had a chat with the person at Fanboy 3 who's running it, Jess, and she is also extremely excited for Lorcana. You kind of just pick up the vibe almost immediately from chatting with her. Um, so this is going to be good. This is going to be well run. If you can make it, please do. It is ticketed, and you do need to have placed a pre-order to be eligible for a ticket. But all the details for that are on their Facebook page. Their website is not updated. Go to their Facebook page. And all the details are on there. You don't need a Facebook account. I could see it without mine. I don't like Facebook much. But it's all the info's there. I'll be there. So if you do happen to be a listener, do come and say hello. I'm going to be taking my proxy library, and it will be going away as soon as midnight hits. But hopefully, one of the Disney games we'll be playing there will be a run up to Lorcana.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. We will make sure to let you guys know of any other UK events happening once we have the information. We'll do a weekly roundup of local events, and hopefully, once they start happening, we'll get some tournament reports for you, which would be very, very cool.
Yep. So if you happen to know of any local events that are planned for the launch of Lorcana, do let us know in the comments section. That'd be very appreciated. And while you're down there, do feel free to give us a like if you've enjoyed the show today.
Yes, we like those likes. Give me the validation, please.
I think it's time to sign off. I have been Alex. I am Neon Godzilla in the Lorcana HQ, the Lorcana UK, and the Pixel Porn Discord.
Yep, and I'm Kev. I am Jalganetsu on the Discord, same servers as well. And again, throw us a comment on the YouTube video. We'll see it, we'll reply. And if you have any questions or anything that you want us to discuss, feel free to give us an email over at friendsontheotherside@yahoo.com. We'll pick that up and we'll answer it next week. But again, thanks for listening. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Ta-ta for now.